Well, good evening to all you wisdom walkers out there. I am Jojopahmaria Nsoroma here for another edition of Wisdom Walk to Self Mastery here on YouTube Live. And I am also concurrently going to be broadcasting over Blog Talk. So for these next couple of minutes, I get to chit and chat with you for a second. Um, I do these broadcasts weekly, but last week I took time off to spend time with a friend and drive down the Pacific Coast Highway. And if you haven't done that, please put that on your bucket list. It was an amazing, amazing experience. And I took 2 days to go from San Jose back here to Santa Monica. But ideally, you'd want to have at least 4 to 5 days because there is so much to see and do through these little beach towns, through just these incredible, protected, beautiful spaces of green and these beautiful hills and rocks that jut out of nowhere, both on land and in the sea. It was just amazing. And you go through a period where there's no cell phone connection. Yeah, I stopped at a restaurant that actually had a pay phone because that's the only way people can connect. And I thought that was wonderful. And it was just absolutely gorgeous and amazing. Very spiritual experience for me too, because I really connect with the land and the ocean and the animals. Yeah, I got to see these elephant seals that were rooking. They were all over the beach, like hundreds of them. It was amazing to hear them and smell them and see them. It's not often that they're there. I think it's like twice a year that they come. So that was really a high point. And it was just, I could go on and on and on, but it was just really, really beautiful. And fields of strawberries like I've never seen in my life. Cows and just all beautiful flora and fauna. It was just really amazing. It's like another world. It really is on that Pacific Coast Highway. It was just incredible. So I am so excited that I got to do that and very grateful that I'm back here with you now to complete the series that I was doing on Core Wound Alchemy, and should have done the last one last week, but now I'll do it this week for you. So my theme song on the radio broadcast is just about to finish. And in a minute, I will unmute that mic and give you an official start to the program. And I'm just really, really excited to talk to you about the liberated heart. And we can now begin. Good evening and welcome to Wisdom Walk, here both on Black Hole Radio and my YouTube channel, Wisdom Walk to Self Mastery. I am Jojopahmaria Nsoroma, and I have been talking all of April about Core Wound Alchemy, because April is a mineral month and we're in a mineral year. And so much is afoot about our purpose, our higher purpose. If we're not on purpose, we're being pushed to be on purpose. If we are on purpose, but we have to go up to another level, we're being taken to that other level. And so, yeah, April has been quite an amazing month. And so I am going to conclude the theme of Core Wound Alchemy with you at this time. And I'm going to focus on what I consider to be the true goal, the true treasure of Core Wound Alchemy, which is the liberated heart. the liberated heart. Now, for those of you who may be listening or watching for the first time, let me give you a brief overview of what Wisdom Walk is, because it is a resource for your mind, body, and soul. My ministry is any pain that is not transformed will be transferred. So, the essential goal of my shows is to support listeners with learning how to recognize and release any pain that may be blocking fulfillment in life, or what I like to call having your happy endings in life. Every Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific, I broadcast on both Black Hole Radio and YouTube Live, unless I'm on hiatus, like I was last week. And if for some reason you can't access the internet to listen or watch, you may listen to the live radio broadcast over the phone. And that number is area code 563-999-3089. Again, that's 563-999-3089. Also, the web link that I provide for the radio broadcast through my Facebook page, Wisdom Walk Radio. Also, you may receive it in a constant contact. That link, once the show is finished recording, becomes the archive link. And so if you're not able to listen live, you can listen later. Of course, for YouTubers, you know that when I finish the live broadcast, that the YouTube will be available for you as well whenever you want to see it again or share it with someone. And so right now, I just invite you to sit or lay back and join me for the exploration of the inner landscape, where we can connect to our souls, which is so essential to being human, and discover the true treasure of being human. As always, I begin my shows with an acknowledgement of the ancestors. These are the people whose shoulders we're standing upon. These are the people to whom we're beholding, to who and where and what we are today. And I'm not just talking about those ones that did great things and loved on us and, supported us and cheered us on and who set great examples. I'm also talking about the black sheep in the family, the ones you wouldn't want to be running behind, the ones who hurt you physically, emotionally, sexually. And the reason why is because our souls grow as a result of both the good and the bad. And once someone has crossed over into the land of the ancestors, which is what I believe in the tradition that I wisdom keep, in this land where they return to, they become awakened fully to their spiritual essence. And they get to see what sacred contracts they made and what they got to keep, what they didn't, but they understand the things that they did. If they did walk a path of fear, if they did walk a path of negativity, what I call the low road, then they're the ones who are so anxious to be guides and support to those of us living in this 3D world right now. And so when I call on the ancestors, I'm calling on all of them because I need all the help I can. And if somebody's gone down the wrong road and knows how to help me not do that, yeah, I want that support. I definitely want that support. So for the month of May, which is an Earth month, and I'll give you more information about that in my next broadcast and live stream. But this month really is a time to open up to focusing on thinking about supporting, loving, and encouraging the mothers. Yeah, because Earth is all about Mother Earth. It's all about home, nurturing. And we can't be humans and exist without that. We really can't. And so tonight, I want you to think about your mother. Now, you may not know your mother, or you may not have grown up with your mother, but somebody mothered you. I recently saw the movie Shazam, which I thought was really, really good. DC, had been falling behind. Marvel Universe always got the psychological stuff right. And DC kind of had fallen back from Batman Returns. But with Shazam, they've come back and they present the story. It's all about this young man who was lost in a crowd at an amusement park, and his mother didn't come for him. And so he ends up going through the foster care system. And in the story, we learn about, as he learns, that even if you didn't have your birth mother, that you can have people in your life who will mother you and who will support you and love you. And so we're going to focus on the mothers. Sometimes you may have a mother, but you may not be getting enough of what you need from your mother. And so there's somebody else. Maybe it's an aunt, older sibling. Sometimes mothers show up in a male body. In Africa, there's an understanding of the male mother, which is usually like the brother of the mother that you have. That's your male mother. So what's important here is about who were those persons, and in particularly the women, the mothers, who really nurtured you, who made you feel loved, cared for. Who was it that you knew had your best interest at heart, was not out to get you, was out to gift you, and who loved you enough to tell you when you weren't doing the right thing, loved you enough to tell you the truth? Um, who was that for you? And I want you to think about those people right now. I was very blessed to have a mother, and a mother who really showed love and affection, but at the same time, like, she did not play. So, you know, she was a great balance of that for me. And I'm very, very blessed that I had her in my life. My mother passed on in 2001. But I learned so much from her, and so much that I understand about mothering, I learned from her. And so I'm going to take a moment and shout out to these mamas and to these mothers. And yes, we can also include grandmothers and great grandmothers in the mix, aunties, older siblings who are like mothers. At times, my sister mothered me. She really still does. She still sees me as a little baby. um, but we're going to call out to all of these people who are now in the ancestral realm that were mothers to us. Creator, Mother, Father, God, Source, all the one, all that is. Thank you, thank you, thank you for the blessing of the mothers. We're calling out to those ancestors who were mothers to us, who knew how to nurture us, to guide us, to love us, to hold us, to support us when we were sick, to champion us and cheerlead us on when we were involved with a challenge, who always had a kind word for us when we really, really needed it, or who always had some wisdom that maybe we didn't want to hear, but was exactly what we needed to hear at the time. To these persons who took on raising us or contributing to our growth and development, many of them sacrificed things that they wanted to do, but instead decided to put their time and energy into what it is that we needed and in the way that we needed it. And we are so grateful for these examples of true humanity on the earth. And so we ask and thank these mothers to continue to be guides to us, to help us be mothering to people and children and family members that really are in pain, to strangers even when the opportunity arises. Help us do our mothering, whether we are male or female, because we so need this on the earth plane at all times. And so, ancestors, 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 we thank you. We thank you for being and bringing the mothering in our lives. And Creator, I ask and thank you for the blessing of the ancestral mothers in the name of all that is holy. I say amen, ashe, aho, asah, shinga, bismillah, and so it is. Ashe. Thank you, thank you. Moving right along, we're going to go into some elemental wisdom and some astrological wisdom for this week coming up. And I call the week beginning when January 1st occurred, the day of the week that January 1st occurred, and that was a Tuesday. So our week comes starting on the 7th of this week. And according to the wisdom that I hold, a 7 means a fire week. We're coming to a fire week. Yes, yes, yes. So here is some opportunity and distractions for you regarding the fire week. Embrace and practice forgiveness. Yes, yes, yes. Invoke the ancestors, as we just did, to help you forgo being a martyr to past pain, as you invite the grace of forgiveness to embrace you and remove what was never yours to keep. Ask and thank your God for enabling you to receive the grace of forgiveness for those who have hurt you and for those you have hurt, consciously or unconsciously. Prepare an ancestor plate at every meal, light a candle, and feed them with your intention to honor their existence and to receive their guidance, wisdom, and love as well. They, the ancestors, want you to win and are committed to you not repeating their sorrows. You are their dream come true, and they want you to live your happy endings. Yes, yes, yes. So this wonderful fire week of forgiveness and connecting with the ancestors. Now, here are distractions. Here are distractions that could pull you off the tracks around the forgiveness piece, especially. One is wanting to be right about being a victim. And, I don't think we do this consciously, but when you step back and you look at your behaviors or your thoughts around a place where you're stuck, you may discover that, oh, I'm really like participating in this, aren't I? I'm like keeping this going. And that's just a distraction. You've got to fall into forgiveness. That's the only way out, and back to peace. Thinking you have to figure out things on your own, right? That you can't ask for help, that you got to have it all together. Can't have any problem. Yeah. No, always we can get the help that we need. Judging and criticizing yourself and others. Huge distraction to forgiveness work. Yeah. And huge distraction to really being able to connect with the ancestors. That's really true. And then last but not least, taking on the problems of others. And this is very easy to do. Very easy to do. It's almost like sometimes we feel like if I just take this on and I solve it for them, they're going to be okay. But the reality is, no, only people and only you can heal or solve your problems. What somebody else can do is support your work. So be on the lookout for that this week of fire, transformation, practicing and embracing forgiveness. Now, next Tuesday, May the 14th, we'll begin a mineral week. So we get another mineral week coming up. And of course, I'll tell you all about that in the next broadcast and live stream. Now, for our astrological information, I'm getting this first part from astrobutterfly.com. And she says on May the 5th, we have a new moon, and that's today, at 14 degrees in Taurus. What does that mean? It means that every new moon is your opportunity to complete a chapter and start a new one. And this is really, really significant based on what's been going on in the timeline that we're having. This new moon is in Taurus, and she says Taurus is the producer of the zodiac. So Taurus has this magic ability to turn something ephemeral, like an idea, into something real. The new moon in Taurus is a time to get focused and produce. It's time to get real. What makes the new moon in Taurus even more special, it's that it's the first new moon in Taurus with Uranus there. So I talked about this a couple of months ago, that Uranus, the planet Uranus, has moved into Taurus. And it did begin that last year, but now it's really in there, and it's in here for a good long time. And Uranus and Taurus is really just blowing things up, putting an emphasis on, you can say, what it is that Taurus rules over, which is very much things about home and finance and relationship. Yeah, yeah. And Uranus is kind of this planet that is, it's like the father of all the god planets out there, and it has to do too with timing, right timing, and it has to do with to do with things coming to fruition. So this new moon today started yesterday into today, just to have that awareness that you really have completed something. You've completed a chapter. And even if it was just a month long, you finished that chapter, and now is the opportunity for something new. Speaking of May the 5th, this, of course, is Cinco de Mayo, as practiced in Latino countries. And we also do honor it here. So happy Cinco de Mayo. It's a very, very significant day as well. Something about that 5-5. It's really powerful. Now, Barbara Goldsmith, the other astrologer I like, talked about these new moons are always an opportunity for a fresh start. Here we go again. Taurus rules finances and your love life. Both of these areas can be rebooted at this time. She also talks about this May as being a time of sensual awakening. And I really, really like this, because what she's meaning is that we are multisensory beings, okay? So, for example, it's not just about our intuition, but it's also about our intellectual sensibility. In other words, if somebody says something and they're throwing out what seems to be like facts, but it doesn't feel right, that's your intellectual sensibility saying something's not right here. You also have a spiritual sensibility. You have a sense of balance. You have a cosmic sensibility. Yeah. And many people like me have a shamanic sensibility. So we have all of these different senses, ways of experiencing the multiple realities that go on, that exist. And of course, new science has caught up with that. But ancient peoples knew that for many, many thousands of years. And so we want to just honor that, be aware of that, in this month, you may have some more of your sensibilities, kind of waking up, or you're going to notice some more things beyond the three-dimensional experience of taste, touch, smell, hearing, and taste, touch, smell, hearing, and there's one more, but I'm not thinking of it now, but you know what I mean, the five senses. So I also want to acknowledge, in terms of dates and times, that tonight begins the opening of the Ramadan season. And so for all the persons out there who are Islamic or practicing Islam, happy Ramadan to you. I have a great respect for this, because I have good friends who are Muslim or practicing Islam. And I know how important this season is for letting go and really raising one's spiritual awareness over these 40 days. It's pretty powerful. So, and interesting, again, we just came off of Easter, we just came off of Passover, and now we get the Muslim high holy days. So as human beings, these things are really important, and really important that we realize it's all one. Everybody has a way to really get more deeply connected to their God. And so many blessings to everyone who is stepping into practicing Ramadan. Now, let me give you an overview of what I will be talking about for tonight to conclude my theme of Core Wound Alchemy. I, of course, am going to do a brief recap of the previous three programs that I did on this information so that I can then talk with you about the liberated heart versus the imprisoned heart. And then a little bit about liberating the heart, which is really what I've been talking about for all of the broadcasts. And then, of course, I'll give you a personal challenge. My quote for this week comes from Parker J. Palmer, again, referencing his work called Let Your Life Speak. And he says, the power for authentic leadership is found not in external arrangements, but in the human heart. Authentic leaders in every setting, from families to nation states, aim at liberating the heart, their own and others, so that its powers can liberate the world. Yeah. Very, very nice. Very, very nice. It's so, so important. So important. So let's do a recap. I started off the month of April talking about core wounds and what were they, and basically told you that no one gets to be on this planet without one, that it's universal and it's unwanted, undeserved, hard to accept, hard to heal. These negative, painful situations that occur in utero, when you're actually developing in your mother's womb, or in childhood or adolescence, and that the imprints an unconscious negative belief system onto your ego, abandonment, physical or emotional, betrayal, all forms of abuse, confinement, birth trauma, birth defects, premature birth, serious illness, not being wanted, being bullied at school or at home, etc., are examples of a core wound situation. The good news is that core wounds are divinely orchestrated and can be mined for treasure to become our greatest gifts. In fact, your life has been uniquely framed to give you unlimited opportunities to heal, grow, and evolve through the core wound. Helen Keller is just one of the many examples of humans who have made their greatest wound their greatest gift. Then I talked about why core wounds exist. Like, why is that? Why do we have to go through this? And so, our essential and highest purpose in life is to evolve our love consciousness, to become more loving than what we were when we were first born, if you can imagine that. So, for love to grow in this dimension, we have to experience its opposites. That's the cosmic law about a three-dimensional place. Okay. You can't know what's hot if you don't know cold. And as Deepak Chopra says so beautifully, quoting from the ancient Vedic teachings from India, a man born blind at birth can never know darkness because he's never known light. Yeah. Yeah. So, core wounds, again, being universal, everybody has one, from the Queen of England to a homeless woman living in the street. It's the way in which we get to be able to discern between what is really loving and humane versus what is unloving, fearful, negative, destructive, and inhumane. And it's important that we know the difference between that. I mentioned that, there was a time in our evolution as humans that we would watch people fight to the death in the Colosseums. Yeah, that was like sport. And now today, we just watch football and the Game of Thrones, right? So we're less lethal in our behavior. But again, the reality is we evolved away from something. And so it's important for us to understand that that's what the core wound experience is really connected to and designed for. And so it's very natural for us to evolve away from core wounds. That's really, really important. It's not like you get the core wound and you're supposed to suffer for the rest of your life. No, it's an obligatory so that your soul would grow. And so it's a process. It's a process. But the main thing is to know that we're not supposed to stay stuck in a core wound suffering. No, there is treasure to be got. And so that's why I talk about core wound alchemy. Now, the alchemists long ago were these scientists who believed that they could change lead into gold. And in order to do that, they had to do a series of very specific steps. They came up with this procedure and process, and they had to repeat it over and over and over again until they got it right. Well, in the process of doing that, what really came about is all this learning about the elements and about, water vapor and all kinds of things that they did know before. So even if they didn't get to the gold, they got to the gold of going through the process. And they also got that experience of belief, of being able to believe. The greatest strength of the alchemist was this unwavering faith, patient endurance, outlasting temptations to disbelieve. And every successful alchemist knew that consciousness precedes being, meaning you have to believe in your truth before you can manifest it. And so, core wound alchemy is this conscious intent to transform your core wound negative beliefs into loving beliefs about who and what you truly are and what you're here to truly do. Now, in order for your lead to become gold, right, you must first disassociate with the properties of lead, which is fear and negativity, and take on the properties of gold, the positive outlook, the hopefulness, and of course, the love. Now, core wound lead I focused on next because there are 5 major ones that we all deal with. And I got these from, again, Parker Palmer's work and translated it. He called them leadership monsters, and I just call them core wound lead. And they are insecurity, believing the world is a battleground, self-sabotage, both from fear of failure or fear of success, solipsism or functional atheism, believing that I'm more responsible than God, and last but not least, the addiction to victim consciousness, where we need villains in our lives and we need to be able to tell a story about how somebody treated us so badly. Now, the tools for taking that lead and getting it to the gold is acceptance, forgiveness, self-mastery, and service. Yeah. So you can see just from that, we're talking a process. This isn't going to happen overnight, that your core wounds are going to become your gold. It's something that we work on. But when we work on it consciously, then we'll get some really good results and we'll move through the process much easier. There'll be more of a flow. So, with those tools, acceptance, forgiveness, self-mastery, and service meaning I'm able to consider the well-being of others in addition to myself. Okay. This isn't about self-sacrifice. No, I'm talking about service. And so when you're serving, you have to make sure that you are okay so that you can serve. But it is this ability to think magnanimously, that it's not just only about you or all about you, that you see yourself as part of and connected to a bigger circle, wider circle. Yeah, very, very important. So with these tools of core wound alchemy, as I call them, comes these steps, because that's again what the alchemists did. And the 5 steps that I talked about were first, unbridled curiosity, where you have to let go of arrogance and judgment so you can learn the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Then there's conscious integration. Once you have discovered your truth, you take time to really get rewired and reawaken. Disassociating from the lead, that's releasing people, places, things, and thoughts that fed the lie. And it involves the forgiveness piece, especially, and practicing the setting of boundaries, reforming relationships, and of course, speaking your truth. Then there's living the practice of self-mastery. This is a daily commitment to take on full responsibility for shifting out of your fear and into the love through introspection and conscious awareness practices. Yeah, that means that I'm not going to stay a victim. I'm not going to stay in this pain. I am going to take initiative and choose to move myself out. Always starting with an attention prayer. Yeah. And then last but not least, living your higher purpose. This is about allowing yourself to experience your value by self fully sharing your gifts, your talents, and your genius, especially when there's a risk involved. Especially when there's a risk involved. Yeah. And it's also about replacing the let it relationships and experiences with the golden ones, releasing your survival mentality and your attachment to just the 3D consciousness. Now, I gave a personal challenge after that first bit of information that I gave in the first video and broadcast, where I asked you to take time to identify your core wound so that you could work on shifting out of its unconscious belief system. I asked you to think about the negative, repetitive patterns in your life. What do they point to from your childhood or adolescence? What happened that was so painful that it shut down your heart or disconnected you from your divine self and your soul? Then I asked you to do a faith gesture for acceptance and forgiveness to jumpstart and deepen your alchemical journey. For acceptance, I said make a physical representation of your core wound. For forgiveness, it was writing a letter to everyone associated with your core wound, including yourself, because as children, we always blame ourselves for when something goes wrong. And then I asked you to do an ancestor ritual, placing this package that you created on your altar first, and then offering it to the fire or a flowing body of water. And I gave details for that in the YouTube below, in the box below of the YouTube. And also, I think I posted it on my Facebook page. Next, I talked about the core wound treasure. And I opened with sharing some wisdom I got from my teacher, Malidoma, about what a blessing really is. Because normally we think of a blessing as something material, like some money, some furniture, a new car, all these material things. But a true blessing is internal. It's internal wealth and prosperity. It is the connection to your soul. It's a capacity to believe that the world is out to gift you, especially in the face of no evidence. So we're talking faith. Having faith is a blessing. It's a blessing. And I talked about how, for example, when you get betrayed by someone, Malidoma says that that's your evidence that you are blessed, because the person who's doing the betraying is doing that because they don't believe they are blessed, and they see the blessing in you, and it just triggers them, sets them off, get jealous, or they get crazy, whatever. And so when we do that perception of what blessing really is, it really helps us become more compassionate in our relationships with other people or things that happen to us. And this moves us into being able to open up to learning the gift in the wound. Because again, if somebody betrays me and I understand that it wasn't about me, that's that person's stuff, it had nothing to do with me, that I am blessed, then I open up to learning more about that blessing. Like, what is it? What does it really mean? How is it showing up? Where is it that I'm not paying attention to it? It just moves us. And so that's the beginning of the core wound treasure. And then I gave these historical examples from a really great article I found by a man named David Bedrick. And his article was Healing Our Wounds, Finding the Gold Within. And it was an example of Maya Angelou, whose sexual assault and her choosing to not speak for 5 years helps her really discover the gift and power of her voice. And of course, she goes on to become one of America's greatest teachers and writes 7 volumes of poetry and 7 autobiographies, and did a tenure at Workforce University, and is just really known as this great wise elder that you can always turn to for some really, really good sayings and advice. Yeah. So again, that whole experience of sexual abuse and losing your voice is what really kind of catapults her into being able to value her voice and value the experience you went through by helping other people. The next example was the great James Baldwin, and about how childhood criticism can become a gift, because it was about his father who, just bullied him almost about the fact that his eyes bulged out. And it was so bad that James at one point was putting quarters on his eyes, thinking that that would push them back in. And ultimately, of course, he becomes a great seer and visionary for America through his written work and, of course, through his lectures and his ability to really see through the morass, to really call out about racism, and not from a place of anger, but from a true place of wisdom and deep, deep, deep understanding about pain. Yeah, about pain. And so the personal challenge I gave for that one was to set an intention about clarity, having clarity about the treasure in your wound, to allow yourself to identify at least one gift you possess, one thing you do that you love to do and do well, that is in service to others. Because that's the other important piece about the core wound treasure. It's not just for you, it's for you to use for others. Yeah. Yeah. So there's the service piece. I asked you to think about, how are you using your gift? How are you strengthening your gift? How are you taking care of your gift in yourself? And I asked you to write it out and or speak it into a recorder so that you had this to refer back to when you started to forget. Yeah. So now, tonight I'm going to talk about the liberated heart, because once we open up to having the gift in our wound, once we believe that we can go on a journey, starting with unbridled curiosity, to really heal our core wound. And healing it means that doesn't mean it goes away. It means that now I can accept it. And now I'm ready to learn how this is to benefit me. I no longer feel victimized by it. I feel like it's got some treasure for me, and I'm willing to learn what that is. And again, that treasure is going to be able to show up in ways that you can share it with others. Yeah, it's like really cool. And so that whole process of, I've got a gift and I can use it, even though I had all this pain in the past, but I can now be of service. And there's something I do that is mine to do, that I have purpose. Now we're talking about liberated heart. Liberated heart. So let me first talk about the imprisoned heart. Okay. This is when the core wound is still very much unconscious and running your life. The imprisoned heart is a heart that is not peaceful because it's mired in confusion, self-doubt, and cowardice. Now, at the beginning of the year, I did talks about, the emerging self that is happening for humanity and must continue. And in this new age that we're in, this age of illumination, and I focused on that we would be getting more clarity, that we would become more confident, and that we would have more courage. Yeah. So the imprisoned heart is none of that. It's none of that. It constantly engages with fear and lacks the ability to relate through compassion, understanding, forgiveness, and unconditional love. See, it just can't go there. It can't go there. It is weak because it makes the past and the future its present. It shuts down emotions of both pain and joy. And in that numbness, it holds on to the pain. And any pain that is not transformed, yeah, it's transferred. So it does a lot of transferring of pain. And it also believes that the joy can never come again, that they can't have it. It can never come again. Or they can never be joyful. There's even that belief that can go on. Now, the imprisoned heart has forgotten that it is integrally connected and supported by the universe, by God, and that God is beating it. A greater order and direction is making it work. So, because it forgets that, it chooses survival over higher purpose. And survival mode means that I will put myself first and I don't care about anybody else. It's every man for himself kind of a thing, right? Um, and higher purpose doesn't exist. Like it's just no understanding of that. And this is an exiling from humanity and from humanistic behavior, an exiling from it. Most importantly, the imprisoned heart does not know or remember love. Now, a great example of this from literature is Scrooge. And I use Scrooge as an example a lot because when we first meet him, this is what it is. His heart is imprisoned. He is so shut down. It's a shame. It's a shame. And he's just numbed out, but just stuck in the pain. Even the place he works in is just like, you